Hour 2 Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, up on TSN 4. Get a big hour here brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Gerry's percentages in about a half an hour. Gerry's a very busy man. Very busy man with the draft tonight.
Does he get booed in Nashville, or is he enjoying his newfound celebrity?
I think it's a lock he gets booed, right? It feels like basically you have to boo him now. You have to. It's like
but Vegas, he was yucking it up. He had his little comedy routine. Maybe he tries to carry it over and bombs.
Possibly. I think he embraces it. I think he likes it. I think it's kind of it's a part of the script every year, right?
I will be watching. I'll be watching for one gentleman, and that's the gentleman from Buffalo with the flowery shirt, the Tommy Bahama.
If I get eyes on that guy.
If I get eyes on that tonight, in the background, they'll show. First and foremost, I was thinking about this again. We discussed tree living. Oh, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Brad tree living is not allowed at the draft table until after. So it actually draws more attention. Because the camera's going to find Tree somewhere else, right? He's going to be sitting up in a box or something. And then his entrance after Calgary picks, he's going to have to make his way down to the table. That's actually drawing more attention to the situation, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. The whole thing, as we established yesterday, is so goofy.
And isn't Toronto? Ridiculous. Does Toronto have a first-round pick? It's a late first round.
28 tonight. It's Boston's pick.
Okay. It's like they're after Calgary. That's what I don't understand.
Exactly. And
you know what I mean? If they were like 12 and Calgary was 13, I'd be like, that's a little bit dicey. Who knows? I don't know. It's weird.
And if Calgary trades out of the first round, then what happens? Can Trey Living show up for the 28th pick? The whole thing is silly. But the Leafs are down. The whole league is down there. And it's going to be a quick turnaround. Once you get past tonight, you're going to get to July 1st pretty quickly and free agent frenzy. And there are signings and there are trades. And today, David Kampf signed a 4-year deal at $2.4 million per to stay here. Pontus Holmberg stuck around 2 years at $800,000. A lot of rumors that they're still talking to guys like Alex Kerfoot, still talking to O'Reilly, possibly talking to Shen. They got a number of UFAs that they're trying to work through. And listen, Kampf, as we established last hour, is a good player. Good player, but he's likely a fourth-line player, right? I think on a good team, that's what you want. Fourth-line player, defensively sound and kills penalties and wins draws and all that good stuff. But I think if you're a Leaf fan, you're waiting for something that is a real tangible change, right?
And
like you're waiting for something to look and feel different.
Do it.
No. Well, we'll see. I mean, and it could be, we've discussed it a lot. It could be Willie, because I think the Timo Meier signing today, that's it. That's Willie's territory, right? Is Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yeah, Meier had 40 goals last year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he signed for, I think, $8.85 million over 8 years. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, 8 years at 8.5. That's the ballpark for Willie. And
I still think it's
pretty simple if you're the Leafs.
I still think it's something with a 9 in it, but it's still in that ballpark, to your point, Brian.
Why does it even have to, I understand what you're saying, Jamie, but they got to get to a point where it's like, no, it's not starting with a 9.
Right. The other players around the league and the other GMs are telling you this is what it is. Now, Willie doesn't have to accept that. To be clear, Nylander can say, I'll just play it out. He's totally entitled to that. But at some point, the tide's got to turn a little bit, right, with the Leafs and try to get back to where I think other players are at that are in a similar kind of ballpark. But, it's a big night tonight in the NHL, big week in the NHL, and it's always a good time when we can get Ray on the phone. And here he is, our buddy Ray Ferraro, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's happening, Ray?
Not much. Haven't had much to do for about a month. It's been played golf 19 times since the end of the season. It's been a good run.
Yeah, that would be a pretty good run. Yeah, so what do you make of this week then? Are you just kind of watching as a fan then? I mean, you guys will still be doing the podcast, and is there anything cooking with ESPN? Where are you at?
No, I'm ESPN's there. I'm not. I just watched Riley play soccer, which was awesome, and I'm just kind of watching as a observer, and man, it's really interesting to watch how everything in the league, no matter good management, good players, bad players, everything runs through a flat cap. And teams are so jammed. It's interesting to me to see how different places are approaching basically the same problem. Like, how do we make our team better with no cap space? And we got to get cap space, except none of the other teams really have very much either. And so I found it really, like, what Colorado's done the last couple of days, or week, I guess, has been really interesting to me. They get a player in Ryan Johansson who makes too much money at $8 million, and they get him at $4 million. And that's with Landeskog's money freed up because he's not going to play. I mean, that's a really good deal. They get Ross Colton. He should be a 20-goal scorer, and he was making $1 million last year. He's an RFA. So for very little, they move out Newhook, and they've kind of reshaped a lot of the weaknesses of their team. That's really interesting to me. And so we'll see what the other teams can get done in the next couple of days.
Ray, I've been saying this all week now, defined or not, I feel like all hell is going to break loose, but I don't know if the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade was the beginning of that. You mentioned Colton, Newhook. There are bodies moving around, but do you feel like maybe there is a blockbuster right around the corner that could be announced here either at the draft or, especially heading into free agency?
I do. And I think it's just for the reason that the names that are, or the teams that are trying to carve out cap space, the names that are bandied about around that, you can't trade them for prospects. Like if somebody figures out a way to trade or accept Erik Karlsson in a trade, the players, like, money's got to go back the other way, even if there's a third team involved. So money means players, and probably significant players. I mean, I thought Kevin Cheveldayoff made an awesome trade from a place where, look, the guy says, Dubois says he's leaving, and he ends up with 3 NHL players and a draft pick. Like, I think that's an amazing trade. And what do you think Hellebuck's return is going to be? It's not going to be a couple of draft picks. Like, there's going to be names that will be maybe not game changers, but names that will be significant and move the needle, because Hellebuck will go in one way. And, and coming into Winnipeg, they've got a chance to kind of remake on the fly. Look at what our guy Tommy Fitz is doing in Jersey, man. Like he's like playing like a lottery right now. Everything that he turns around, I mean, Toffoli's going to make them a better team. Right? They get Meyer signed. Meyer will settle in and be a really good player there. Like I like the fact they made the playoffs and they've had a really good start to the offseason.
Ray, we were talking about the Leafs, and Hayes was mentioning like the idea of just bringing the band back again. And for years we were like, this is the last chance for these guys all to go at this again. What do you make of that? Just kind of being the same thing again this year. Obviously, there's going to be some different parts with the holes they have in their lineup, but the idea of going at it with the same again.
I'm surprised, honestly, that's what looks like it's going to happen. I mean, of course, Nylander's the one that, might change the direction of it. But look at
Is that because of his contract or?
Yes. Like, eventually there's $83 million this year, and they got to make it all fit. And can you really bring back the same group and expect it to be much different? Well, maybe. And the reason I say maybe and why it could be different, Tampa and Boston are going to be nowhere near the same teams. I mean, Tampa's been gutted over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And, everything I read from Don Sweeney is that's going to be a far different team in Boston. But doesn't it feel like the shortcomings are so clear in Toronto that the same group, how does it change much? How do the results change much? Because I still think they'll steamroll through the regular season. I mean, it's a good team. Yeah. It's a really good team. But why will it be different come next April? And the next 82 games, does anybody care in Toronto? Like they could win 58 games next year or 50 games. What does it matter? Because it's just going to matter come April 20th or whenever the playoffs start.
Yeah, that is what I think is going to be clear here, depending on how much other activity happens. But if they find a way to extend Matthews and Nylander, they come back with the 4-4 up front, they bring Riley back, they bring Keefe back. That's your identity, right? Like that's what the average fan associates with the team. Those are the guys, right? And then of course you filter through other players. But over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of filtering in and out. We've had a lot of different players come and go. Right? They have adjusted their goaltending, their defense, their third line, their fourth line, their coach. So they have done different things. But it appears as if, the regular season success is trumping playoff failure, Ray, when it comes to making judgments. Like significant adjustments and tangible difference.
Okay, Brian, I heard you on Jay with Jay yesterday, and it's funny. I watched your clip about a half an hour after I saw this clip from Luc Robitaille, who's the president in Los Angeles. And so Luc won a Stanley Cup when he went to Detroit at the end of his career. And he said what he learned there is you build a team to win in the playoffs, because if you can win in the playoffs, of course you're going to win in the regular season. It seems like the boat's flipped over in Toronto a little bit. I watched these things like 30 minutes apart, and I was like, whoa, the difference in the view is so stark. Because the regular season clearly is different than the playoffs. Guys, I'm telling you, I did Vegas's third round series. When they came out for Game 6, and they had moved their lineup around to put Waugh in the fourth line with Carrier and Colasar, I'm like, this is a football team on skates. Like, there is no chance they're going to lose. And so as we're talking about Toronto, how is their team going to beat a team as deep and as big as that? And it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And you can't have everything, but it's been year after year. Why is next year going to be different?
Well, yep. I'm not sure how you can make the argument that it will be. And again, it's obvious. It's not that Shanahan and company don't want to win. Of course they want to win, and I'm sure they are true believers that it can happen. But it's almost like they would be looking at it, and the sales pitch would be, it's a lottery ticket. You punch your ticket, and hopefully it works. And Vegas is obviously looking at it differently. Look at what Vegas has done today. They just flipped Riley Smith, day one guy. He's a great soldier for that team. He's out because the guy they got at the deadline's got to stick around. Ivan Barbashev just signed 5 years at $5 million per.
Okay, I got to say this about Vegas. So most people think they got, handed this green card, go when they came in. Nobody picked that original roster to do much. If you can unwind it and read all the comments, everybody thought, yeah, it's a pretty good team, but nobody thought that. What they've done since then is they get to the plate, they dig in, and they swing every time. Mm-hmm. Every time. And I find it amazing. Like, they got to a point, they're like, we don't have a top-end defenseman. Like, we need a number one D. So they went and got Pietrangelo. And then after they had all their injuries and, things were maybe not the same, they're like, what we don't have is a number one center. And there was risk involved with Jack Eichel because of his injury. And they went and they swung at Eichel again. Now they get a player in Barbashev who makes a difference, and it's not easy. It's easy to say, just take a big swing. You got to have the wherewithal and the guts to make that move and to make the moves they've made. And they did it again. So, like, I have a lot of admiration for the way that they've continually had one thing in mind, even though they're 6 years old.
It's
but
wild.
Their one thing in mind is we got to get to the end.
If they don't win, Ray, it's reckless. But they won, and it's it's swinging for the fences and hitting homers, man.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Eventually, okay, but eventually maybe they're gonna run out of road, and and they're gonna all these prospects that they've traded, well, are gonna come back to haunt them. Like, I'm sure they'd like to have Nick Suzuki, but they don't. But they won a Stanley Cup. Like,
yeah.
What would people trade? Fans trade for a Stanley Cup. You can always say, "Oh, you got to build. You got to build." Hell, Detroit made the playoffs 25 straight years. They haven't made it since. People have already forgotten the 25 straight years in the playoffs and the 4 Stanley Cups. And so it's like, hell, if you got a chance, dive in. Like, I loved what the Bruins did last year. They made trades. They traded picks. They won 60 games. Like, they had a great team. Try to win. It didn't work. Now you got to regroup.
Well, Ray, if it's a copycat league, you just laid out. So we were talking before you came on, David Kampf signs a 4-year extension at $2.4 million. Probably got the AAV down by giving him the extra year or two. But you just talked about Vegas and having a fourth line with football players on it, big, mean, fast, all of that, all of the above. If you're trying to win in the playoffs, that doesn't scream, hey, look at Vegas's formula and how they just won. If anything, you're rolling back a guy who's, he's a good player, solid, good on the PK, but he's not very tough to play. He's quiet. He's not aggressive. He's not a guy who runs people over like we saw Vegas. That fourth line dominated against Florida in the finals.
Well, I would say this, Jamie, is that if teams really think that they can, copycat and replicate another team, like, you could probably put together 6 defensemen of the same height and stature and all that sort of stuff that Vegas has, but they're not the same people, right? Like, maybe they're not as smart as Pietrangelo. Maybe they're not as mobile as a third pair like Haig played on and Whitecloud. Like, they might all look the same, but they're not the same. So if you're Toronto, right, you have to go, this is what we are. We can't be Vegas. What can we be? I don't know. I think Kampf's a good player. I don't know, does 10 goals get you $2.5 million these days? Maybe it does, and he's got to contribute 10 goals. He has to. But it's hard when you have teams that are, like, there's certain teams that have all kinds of cap space, and they can pay a guy, Chicago can pay Nick Foligno $4 million. You can't pay him that. Another team can't pay him that. But Chicago's like, yeah, we got to get to the cap floor. He's a good guy. He works hard. He had a really good year in Boston, $4 million. Well, then he's out for you. I love small scores, right? I'm biased and all that stuff. But I watch Vegas, and I'm like, man, if you're trying to win and you've got to run through them eventually, that's going to be hard if you don't have the physical stature to compete against them. Look at Edmonton is huge. They're huge. And part of the reason is if they're going to get through, they have to get through those teams. It's really an interesting thing. It really is to look at. And I mean, I don't know. What are you going to, if you don't sign Kampf, is he now your third line center? He's got to be. Can't pay your fourth line center that, can you?
I guess
we'll
find
hope
out.
that he is, though. I think
we'll find
you've
out.
got to make moves down the middle. But, I mean, I would think you hope that he's your fourth line center at $2.4 million.
I was going to say, are we going down a road now that he's now the third line center?
Well,
this is news to me.
What are you going to pay a third line center then? $4 million?
They don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, you don't have. My point is, you don't have the money. Like, what's that? Once the numbers start to come in, like, I don't know if Tavares is a $11.5 million left winger, that's a lot of money out there, right? Like, the middle of your team is where the money has to be. And you've already got one really high-priced winger. You're probably going to have another. It's I don't know. The mix just doesn't strike me as right when I look at it.
Yep. I can't disagree with you. Yet, as you said, right, they'll probably finish with 108 points,
Sure.
Yep. Go to the playoffs, and that's probably what's going to happen here. But it's amazing how amnesia pops up twice in the hockey world on day one of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all these arguments. You see it. It's like, oh, I like this team. They're speedy and skilled. It's like they're going to get crushed, man. We do this every year.
Jersey. Everyone was like, Jersey's going to run teams in and out of the building, up and down the ice.
It's not going to happen. And then literally like a week after the cup gets handed out, it's like, man, I like that guy. 5'9", buzzes around. It's like, how does this happen? Twice a year, right? Every year with this sport.
Vegas has one, and again, I don't love the copycat thing because you can't bring the same people.
Sure.
But Vegas' Stanley Cup team had one small player, and he won the Conn Smythe.
Right.
Right.
Well, look at Tampa, right? Look at Tampa for years. Biggest team in the league.
Giants. Look at Tampa's defense was enormous. And so, you can buzz around all you want. The six biggest guys on the ice were their top 5D and the goalie. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's what's going to be cool though? We're going to watch this draft, right? And I mean, Bedard's different, but watch how many guys in this draft in the first round are not big. There's a really skilled component to this draft that is not big. And teams are going to draft those kids 5, 7, 11, 15. Those kids are going high. And it's going to be interesting to see what they can do.
Ray, the first time I got a taste of it was we were all down at the draft in Florida. And I think it was Dubas's first draft. And these kids were coming over to our table. And I was like, Jeremy Bracco, he looked like a 14-year-old. It was crazy. And you just look at what they drafted a bunch of them. They all looked the same. They were 5'10", 170 pounds. And I don't know how many of them are around right now. It's crazy.
Well, I would suspect that of the things that were, that Kyle might have learned over his time is his view of what could be successful has probably changed. And the experience would change it because you watch it year after year after year and you go, yeah, that's not going to get it done. No. And we all know, and I lived my whole career like this. If I went to a puck 50-50, like dead 50-50, and the other guy was 215 pounds, I lost that puck every time. You lose. Size wins. And eventually you can fight for a balance, but small teams in a confined space are just not going to go deep. It's just not going to happen. Look, even Colorado last year, they were big and they had hard and tough players. And at the deadline, what did they do? They didn't go add more skill. They added Josh Manson.
Yeah. You can't have too many of those little skilled D, like the Brandstrom type, or who's the kid in Colorado? They won the cup, but I don't even think he was in the lineup.
Gerard.
Well, Gerard wasn't playing.
Broke his sternum. He broke his sternum. He did.
Yeah, so he wasn't even in the lineup. I just don't know that player. As much as the regular season, they can make outlet passes, they can make skill plays, they can quarterback power plays. 5-on-5 in a 5-on-5 game, they get dominated and they lose a bunch of battles in your own zone. And I don't know how much value they really bring. It's tough sledding for those guys out there.
It is, and to your point, that's a really great point. Go back, as much as we talk about goaltending, go back over the last 10 years and look at the Stanley Cup champions and check out if they've got a Norris caliber defenseman, because they all do.
Mm-hmm. That's Gord Miller. Gord Miller loves that one.
Oh, yes, he does bang that drum, doesn't he? And look at the goalies, like Aiden Hill. That's a 6th-round draft pick, right? Jordan Binnington played half the year in the American League the year that he won. Outside of Vasilevsky, it has been, Darcy Kemper wasn't, he wasn't winning the Vezina. You go back through and you can win with solid goaltending, but you can't win with average D. It doesn't really ever seem to work.
Yep, seems to be the case, and it's been the case really for a long, long time. probably since the beginning of the game, really, and I don't think it's going to stop next year. All right, Ray. Well, here we go tonight. The Connor Bedard show begins, so enjoy that. And, man, I'm looking forward to seeing him at the NHL level. The pressure's there, but we've seen it before with McDavid and Sid. Like, I expect he just shows up and is a rock star almost right away.
How about they release the schedule there? I don't know if you saw or noticed, but his NHL debut is in Pittsburgh. And I really hope that both coaches have Sid and Bedard on the ice to start.
Yes.
That'd be a great picture.
That'd be really, really cool. And then I think he goes through Montreal on the Saturday night, then he's in Toronto on the Monday night.
18 years old, and he is a rock star, and he hasn't played a game yet. That's awesome.
Wild. Yeah, it really is. It'll be a fun one tonight, buddy. Enjoy it, and enjoy the week. Have a great summer, pal, and we'll do it again real soon. Thank you for this.
As always, great to talk to you guys. Have a great summer. Enjoy your travels wherever you're going, and we'll stay in touch.
You too.
Ray,
right,
best wishes.
Best wishes. I like that. Over the top with the best wishes.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
You got it, pal.
Over the top with the best wishes. Thank you, Ray. Ray Ferraro joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. And check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Gerry's percentage is coming up. That kind of just turned into more of a philosophy of the game chat, but I think it's important to hammer it home, right? Like, there's a lot of players moving around. There's going to be change, but
lots of change, Hazy, but when it comes right down to it, it's all, like I always talk about, there's people that view the game and have different ideas of what you need to do with all their fancy stuff. When it comes down to the team lifting up the cup, it's the same stuff every year.
Yeah.
It's elite skill, but there's a different element to it that you got to have.
Well, and
gotta have it.
The size of the defenseman, we had Ken Hitchcock on, right? And he was saying it's a game of checking. Like, that's what it is. It's a game of who's going to win more checks.
You love that line from
I thought it was a great line.
Check for chances. Did he say check for chances?
And like the history of the game, I've referenced the Darryl Sutter comment. He was talking about the Habs of the 70s. And everyone was buzzing about Lafleur and everyone flying around. He's like, go look at their defense. Go take a look. You think I was going around Larry Robinson? No chance. Think I was getting around him?
True.
Larry Robinson was a mutant that could play.
Yeah.
And was mean. And Serge Savard was massive and mean. And again, sometimes it is a simple answer in front of you. And again, getting back into the Leafs side of things, maybe that is what can really change, right? Maybe up front, you come at it from a similar position. Maybe in net, you come at it from a similar position. But maybe Treliving has come in and sold, I am going to bring in 2 or 3 guys that are really going to change the look of the defense. And if that's the case, then I think once we get to that, then you can argue, okay, something's different here.
Right.
Is it going to show up in the game sheet every night? Is it going to sell more tickets? No, not necessarily. But it could have an impact on how they actually play. Gerry's percentage is coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
You're going to want to hear this.
Gerry's percentages.
I don't love being commissioner as much as I used to. I actually love it even more.
That's the voice of a Hall of Famer.
Are you kidding? Have you been out drinking?
You're all pigeons. Filthy, filthy pigeons.
It's Gerry. Gerry.
All right, so it's a big one tonight. Gerry and the crew. All the teams are going to be there down in Nashville, including the Arizona Coyotes. See their whole crew walking in with the same suits. I like it, man. I got to be honest.
I don't mind it. I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's creative. I jump on them a lot.
They can't afford anything else, but they can $1,000 a piece.
Right.
Fire them up, boys.
You're
no
not
rink,
going to see that
no
in the
nothing.
dorm room. That ain't coming right from the dorm, man. That's a professional hockey team right there. Shout out.
I love it. A few great grinders in there, too.
There's Fergie in the front, too, just grinding his way into the building.
Love it.
Fergie's going to have a big impact on what happens tonight.
Yeah, he's a great man.
Yeah, good
Lots
suit.
of unity there.
Yeah.
Lots of unity.
I got no problem with that. I kind of like that. A little personality, right? A little camaraderie. Nothing wrong with that. I get on the Arizona State University Coyotes a lot, but I will not be doing it here. Not going to happen. I like that.
No, lots of love for them.
Lots of love.
Lots
for
of love.
The Coyotes.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. You guys ready to hear from Gerry?
Go ahead.
Gerry's putting on an absolute clinic in Nashville. Even jumped on a boozy bike tour with the bachelorette party. And let's say the bride-to-be is having second thoughts. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was Gerry time on the bike. Now a team that's not having second thoughts is the Blue Jays sending Manoah to Florida. And he might as well unpack his bags because he won't be back in the majors this season.
I'm kind of higher than I ever thought I would be on that. Mm-hmm. Like, Schneid's our boy is saying the right things, and everyone in the organization is. But no one's kind of said the truth, which is this whole operation of what is Alek Manoah looks like it's miles away from even being close to a major league start.
Yeah.
So I'm like 80% that this happens. 80%, which is frightening.
That's high. That's high. It's
it
frightening.
is.
And
how could I be any lower than that with that stat line? And I don't care how much the stat line was downplayed. That is frightening stuff.
Yes, it is. And like Schneider, we knew he was going to try and put a positive spin on it. And, he's speaking about the park, the energy in there, who's behind the plate. 11 earned, 2 home runs, 10 hits, 2 2/3 in the complex league is
against paper boys.
Astonishing stat line.
2 2/3 is the thing that there was a few things yesterday when we had Scotty on that were jarring. Mm-hmm. That one, the stat line, the 2 2/3. He talked about a number which was not good.
Basically 30 pounds overweight when he showed up to camp. That's according to the report.
Yeah.
And
it just like stuff like that to me. There is like there's obviously several things he needs to work on. Conditioning's one of them, but it just 2 2/3. Hayes, you said it was probably like a 75 pitch count where they were like, okay, you're done. That, and he's down there against 17, 18, 19-year-olds and can't get out of the second. That's not good.
No, it's not. And in terms of the question, Ross Atkins, he said today, fully expect him to come up. What is Ross going to say? What's he going to say at the end of June? The guy's not coming back and we'll reset next spring. But
just seems like a stretch now, Hazy.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower than you all because, they've been very lucky that the other guys have been healthy. Like Gosman's been very healthy, and Barrios and Kikuchi and Bassett. They've gone out there every other day. Those guys have gone out there and pitched.
Yeah.
But if they run into injuries, they don't acquire something at the deadline, and it gets to a point where he could be close, and they want to believe that he can get it together, desperation can do some wild things. I'll say 60%. I'm still under the majority that we don't see him again in the bigs, but 60%.
I'm above. I didn't like that stat line. I didn't like some of the information coming out of there. I'm 84%.
Austin Matthews and Billy Nye, the wrist shot guy, will take hometown discounts for the Leafs. I had a hard time saying that with a straight face.
Okay. Jerry's not even believing his own takes anymore. What kind of world are we living in here?
Hometown discounts.
Like, be reasonable. It's just that.
Yeah, I'll be reasonable. The idea of them taking hometown discounts, I think, is 20%.
Okay.
Because I don't know if anybody's taken a hometown discount this far. Why would it start now? And that's as simple as my answer could be. Is someone going to wake up and say, "Nah, it's time for a hometown discount"? I don't think so.
My question is, what would you define as a hometown discount?
Well, that's the other element of the question that Gerry didn't specify, and we don't really know that. Well, but just the idea of it, I'm saying 20%.
If it's around 13 on a long-term deal, I think he'll spin it as he could get a lot. He could have gotten a lot more.
Okay, right? So for Matthews, let's say 13 with a 5 years minimum type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And Nylander, what would be a hometown discount for Willie Nylander?
Something in the 8s. 8 years
Something
in
with
the
an
8s.
8. Okay. I am 22% on that.
Both of you are very low. Okay. Very low. Yeah, well, listen.
It's not very low. It's just low.
Yeah. It's low.
Yeah, it's a 1 in 4 type of thing. Like might be a bit more. I think Matthews might. The scary part is I think Matthews might be perceived more as a hometown than Willie. Because him getting 8.8 or whatever or 8. I think he's going to get something with a 9. It's just
technically
it's a
rate. 1 in 5 type of thing.
Yeah, 1 in 5. Yes, 1 in 5. We're
sorry.
Get that right.
Yep. Sorry about that.
I'll say I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic, and there wasn't a discount the last time around, and I certainly would not be bracing for anything significant. But I do wonder if there's something there, and I feel like it's more Matthews. But like someone's got to set the bar for the organization. And that's why I think it's imperative that it is him. He's going to be the highest paid guy, right? And if you get too crazy, then the other guys are going to say, all right, I got to get to a percentage of that. And I don't know if he'll buy it. I don't know if his representative will buy it. But 40%. 40% the Matthews deal is actually reasonable as opposed to, wow, this guy got a lot or, really took them for a ride. 40%.
Hearing buzz that Kyle Lowry might get waived by the Heat. Well, you better believe he'll sign back with the Raptors if that happens.
Ooh.
0% chance.
0% the Groat returns.
Wow.
If he wants to be an assistant coach, maybe.
Darko is looking for help.
Dude, I'm covering sports for the last 10 years. I'm done with the old come back at 36 type deal, and just for sentiment reasons only. How often does it work out? I'm at just a 0% on this. No way.
All right.
No way.
Yeah.
And he's living in that. Like, I don't think he would want to come back, to be honest with you, unless he's dying for a bargain basement deal for work, which I think is highly doubtful.
For Kyle.
Yes.
It may just be, hey, I'll take my money. I've had a great career.
That's it. Check, please. I'm done. I got nothing in the tank anyway.
Okay. Noodles?
I'm a little higher than this. I think I'm 15%. I think there's a chance, but I don't see it. I don't think
it's ideal for either party. Right, like the Raptors, you moved on. It happened.
It's 0%, Hayes, and if you guys want to put some Weasley little percentage on it, you're just basically saying, what the hell? I'm not going to say 0. At least I bring the truth. It's 0.
Listen, it's hypothetical anyway because he has not been waived. As of now, he's still signing with Miami. But if he gets waived, Kyle has to have an understanding that that's the league telling him. You're done. If you want to pull a Vince, you're coming off the bench. You play. There's a lot of games you're not even going to play. That's where there's a possible angle there, but I'm not sure he's wired that way to do it either. And I don't know if Kyle is like the ambassador type, like his whole chip on the shoulder. I got to be in there, and he's a bull on the court. I'm not sure he can adapt to the other side. I'm not sure Masai would want to see it. And plus, you got a new rookie coach. You bring Kyle in here. Yeah, it's 0%. You know what? 1%. 1%.
Oh,
1%.
Say 0.
That's a Weasley.
Say 0.
1% chance. There's a 1 in 100. There's a 1 in 100% chance that either side comes to each other and goes, you know what? Maybe a one-off. On the cheap, one-off. All right, what else do we have?
The Toronto Maple Leafs will make at least one trade with the Flames before the beginning of next season.
A lot of connection there, right? With Brad Treliving now running the show here.
I'm going to say 12%.
Wow.
Oh. I'm going to say 12% because there is probably some options there. But sometimes you want to steer clear of the obvious, where it's like, do I want to start cherry picking off my old organization? It's so predictable. And then it's like he had to get his guys. I mean, we saw the Sault Ste. Marie routine where it's like, got to get this guy, got to get that guy. And maybe it was just by chance that they were all from the Sioux. But I think he steers clear from that. 12%.
I'm the other way. I think Kyle Dubas will end up grabbing Justin Hull or Michael Bunting or somebody like that, guys that he invested in here in Toronto and they may move away from. And at the same situation, I think Brad Treliving probably covets a few guys that he really liked in Calgary that maybe Craig Conroy will part with. So I'm high on this. I think it's 67%.
67%.
Most likely there is something. You know, a lot of you see that all the time where a manager had a player in a certain situation, brings him into his new situation.
Yep.
So
I hear you on that. I'm kind of with you, Noodles. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, there's already rumors and reports that Trey Living could have his eye on a guy or two. Who knows how Conroy looks at it also, right? Like, what does he want to change? And I think that makes sense. Now, if you put the shoe on a different foot, do we expect Kyle Dubas and the Leafs to make a move? Do you think Dubas will make a move with Toronto between now and the beginning of the season? I'm not sure how likely that is, right? Because of the amount of UFAs here that he could possibly pluck without having to trade for somebody. But from that logic, it becomes more of what kind of O is saying. So I'll go 68%, just above you, Noodles, because I do think, Calgary, if they're in a position where they're really selling and they're really turning things over, it would make sense that Trey Living would be one of the guys knocking on the door, right? And would certainly have his eye on a guy or two. So 68%. Do we have one more, JP?
The New Jersey Devils are one of Gerry's sweetheart teams. And if they get Connor Hellebuck, they should be the cup favorite going into next season. Ooh. I know Hazy B loves things down in Jersey.
Be very relevant if that happened.
I'm not going down this road from what you mentioned. All the talk about running up and down the ice, skating you out of the rink. Doesn't happen like that. So how could you be cup favorites even though you have the goaltender? Not doing it. I'm like 15%.
Okay.
Plus, would they be able to afford the goalie? They just gave Meyer. Like, I have to check their cap structure there. They might have to move some money.
They're starting to blow some dough down there. Jack Hughes, Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah. Well, they got Hughes on a great contract. Great deal.
No, a lot of those guys, they're all on good contracts, $8 million and less type of thing. But I mean, the goalie does give you a chance, but, define cup favorite can top 10 because there are 10 teams that we really
favorite.
Like, I'm
4%.
Number one.
I'm lower on that. I'll say 8%. Just 8%. I'm pretty low on that.
Okay, they had a great year last year, right? A lot of people very high on this team. You bring in Toffoli. I think that was a really good play. Sign Meyer. You're talking Hellebuck here. That's your boy, Noodles.
I love the guy, and
if that happens,
he's a difference maker. But I still think that there are better teams. Like
I would agree with you. I don't know. Well, FanDuel will see it that way, right? There'll be a lot of scratch coming in on them, but I'm low on this too. I'm 20%. I think they'd be one of the 5 or 6 teams that would get a lot of love, right? But a standalone, I think it's too early to know who that standalone is. I do. Maybe it should be Vegas. Maybe it reverts back to Tampa or Boston based on what they did last season. But Jersey, even with Hellebuck, which would be a hell of a haul, right? If they could find a way to make the money work, and he's been linked there. Who knows if there's any legitimacy to it? That would put them in a spot where they'd certainly be a team to be reckoned with during the regular season without question. All right, well, let's see if we can slide in at Jerry's After Dark later this afternoon. All right, we'll get back into our conversation with John Schneider. We got Pierre LeBrun coming up from the floor in Nashville. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, time now for our best bets, brought to you by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Looking at the golf this week, the PGA Tour. Tony Finau back at the Rocket Mortgage. He loves this track. He puts up big numbers. He's won there before. Tony Finau, top 10, paying plus 180. Justin Thomas, top 20, paying plus 120. And Ricky Fowler, you got to pay a lot of juice, minus 290, top 40. But I think he makes the cut. He's playing so well right now. I wouldn't be shocked if he won this. So Finau, top 10, Thomas, top 20, Fowler, top 40. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to wager. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 plus and physically located in Ontario. We'll get to our golf picks brought to you by TaylorMade into the next hour. Pierre LeBrun will join us. Jay's back in action tonight. 17 strikeouts last night. Yeah. 17. That's wild.
I saw a stat. I think Gosman is one of the worst in the league for run support.
Yeah,
he was good.
Great.
He gets nothing, right?
Nothing.
Like they couldn't. Like that sucks because he's had a great year for them, but just feathers for run support. That weighs on you because you're on the mound knowing, hey, I'm getting nothing tonight. I almost have to have a perfect game or, in that ilk if I'm going to have a win tonight.
Absolutely, and they're 1-6. I saw Griff tweet this out earlier. 1-6 in the openers, the last 7 series. Which, as an individual game, it doesn't necessarily matter. But generally, the way you know how it is. Every series, you reset. You try to win a series, right? Go get a series. And if you start behind the 8 ball all the time, you're chasing it. You're constantly chasing it. But listen, they've got a lot of quality starts. They're top 5 in the league in quality starts, and that's without Manoah offering them any. Basically, it's Gausman, it's Bassett, it's Kikuchi, it's Barrios. They've been very fortunate, very very healthy. That rotation. And 3 or 4 arms in the bullpen have been very successful. They gotta get big hits at big moments. It's the one thing that's been hanging over them all year. Like, it's so frustrating to watch because there's no clutch hitting. None. The amount of runners in scoring position that they leave on, the amount of guys they leave on base, and when it feels like they're about to rally, it's like quick, someone gets jammed up into a double play or silly base running mistake, and they're out of it.
Be nice to see if Vladdy could step up. Like, I think Vladdy, exactly.
That's the guy. Like, Kirk's on the IL, but Vladdy and Kirk last year. You bring the Vladdy and Kirk of last year and apply it for the final 80 games, you're going to be in a good spot. Really good spot. Final hour coming up. Pierre LeBrun, revisit our chat with John Schneider. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.